So, I'm a very big fan of A Song of Ice and Fire universe. Not so much of the Game of Thrones TV show. I think you can see here that I'm a very big fan. I also don't really like A House of the Dragon, but I really like the Funko Pops. Basically, I read all the books except for one and a half because I haven't read The World of Ice and Fire. I have it here, but it's wrapped in plastic. And the other one that I haven't read before was A Nine of the Seven Kingdoms, but I decided to read at the beginning of the year so I could watch the TV show. And I want to talk about the book today. And I have a smile on my face, but I'm severely depressed that I finished this book. Like, I'm so sad. I don't know how to move on with my life after reading this book. And, like, oh my God. Anyway, I'm going to talk about it. So, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is a book that compiles three novellas, three short stories. The first one is The Hedge Knight, the second one is The Sworn Sword, and the third one is The Mystery Knight. And I have the Brazilian version, I also have the English version. The English version is very cute because it has illustrations. I think the Brazilian luxury edition also has, but this one is just plain text. This story is gonna follow Dunk, a hedge knight. If you don't know what a hedge knight is, it's basically like a knight that goes from castle to castle looking for a job. And this is Dunk. He is a teenager, a young man, and he meets Egg, a 9, 10-year-old boy that is very he has a lot of personality for his age, and together they're going to have adventures around the continent country. So this book is set 100 years prior to the main series of A Song of Ice and Fire slash Game of Thrones, and it's really interesting, like the choices, the writing choices that were made for this book. I think this one is a nice introductory book for people that never read the universe and they don't feel like facing like something this size. I mean, this one is pretty nice. It's three short stories, so you can read one and take a while and then read another and then take a while and read another. And because they weren't published like one after the other, the last two they make nice callbacks to the first one. So even if you take a time between the stories to read them, you're gonna follow along pretty easily. Yeah, I think it's a nice introductory book because since it's kind of a prequel, so most of the characters you're gonna meet here, they're not gonna be alive when the main series happens. I think there's like two characters that are alive when the main series happens, but like there's no way you're gonna get spoilers. So it's really nice. And oh yeah, I forgot to say, but I mean this is big, but I have an American version, I guess. And even with the illustration is like half the size of this book, so it's pretty short. The Hedge Knight. The Hedge Knight is going to tell the story of Dunk, the origin story of Dunk as a Hedge Knight. The story starts when he's burying his previous Sir Arlen. He used to be a squire for Sir Arlen, and now that Sir Arlen is dead, he's burying him, and he's going to try to fight in his first tourney to get some money and starting life as a knight. So he is walking towards this bigish tourney that is happening in the region in Ashford Meadow to celebrate the Lord's daughter's birthday. And on the way there, he stops at an inn to have lunch and he meets a boy. And he says his name is Egg. He's bald and he is full of attitude. He has a very sharp tongue. But almost immediately, Dunk likes him. And the boy asks Dunk to take him as a squire. And Dunk says no because he has no money. He has barely money for him and he doesn't have money for a boy. And he really doesn't know what to do with the boy. I mean, even though he could use a squire, he doesn't really know what to do with the boy. So he goes to this tourney, and on the next day, when he tries to put his name on the lists to participate on the tourney, the master of games is like, "Bro, who are you? Never heard of you, never heard of Sir Arlen of Pennytree. You don't really look like a knight," because there's this part like Dunk, even though he has a very impressive image, because the defining trait, like physical trait of Dunk, is that he's tall. He's almost 2 feet tall, which is 2 feet tall. I don't know. I don't know why I try to say feet. I don't know this measurement. He's almost 2 meters tall. And I mean that's very impressive. He's not only big in size, but he has like a big body. But he doesn't look like a knight because of his clothes and the way he was like carrying his sword and his shield. So the guy was like, "You don't look like a knight. I don't know Sir Arlen of Pennytree. So if you go out in a camp and you find any noble lords, any noble knights that could vouch for you and say that they knew your sir or they knew you and that you are a knight, then you can participate in the tourney." So now he has to find someone because there's a huge camp with different houses, with different lords and knights, things like that. And while he's trying to figure out what to do, he finds Egg again. Well, Egg finds him, and Egg basically forces himself into Dunk's life. And Egg is like, "I'm here, and you cannot take me home because by the time you take me home, you're gonna lose a tourney. So, I mean, just take me in." And Dunk is like, "Okay, I could use a squire." So basically, that's the start of the story. This journey is supposed to take like 4 days, and we see a little bit of the start of the relationship between Dunk and Egg flourish. And we also see a lot of growth in Dunk in this story. He starts the story having an idea about chivalry and knighthood, and he finishes the story maybe with a different idea or maybe with more of a broad view of what being a knight means. Next story is The Sworn Sword. The Sworn Sword takes about a year and a half after the events of the first story, The Hedge Knight. And it starts with Dunk and Egg reminiscing about the days they spent in Dorne. Dorne is a territory down south in the continent, and they spent a very long time in there. Now they are traveling like north through the continent. So even though we don't get to see his time in Dorne, we it's pretty clear that their time there was very important for Dunk, and he thinks about it a lot, and it's kind of important for his character in the story. But in the present, they are in the Reach. Dunk has sworn his sword to Sir Eustace of Osgrey. He's a knight, but his family used to govern the region, own castles and properties in the region like 1,000 years ago. And he's the type of guy that keeps reminiscing the past, missing the good old days, even though, I mean, they're just part of the past right now. And so right now, Dunk is in Standfast alongside with another Hedge Knight. But there's a problem. Right now it's summer, and there's like a dry season going on. It's like super, super hot, hotter than any other summer so far. And Dunk is running some errands for Sir Eustace, and then he comes back and he noticed that there's like a reach river close to the property, and he noticed that this rich river thing is dry. But the most important thing is that he notices that it's recently dry because he left like a couple of days ago, like 4 days ago, and now he's back. There's no water. So he goes to investigate what happened with this river, and he finds out that the lady from the next property, like the next, like crossing the river is like a different property, is like a different. So this property is from another house, from House Weber, and basically Osgrey and Weber, they don't vibe. And this lady restricted this dam, and she's like, I'm not gonna, like, I'm not gonna give you guys the water back because the river is mine and I do whatever I want and I have plantations here and I have my people here and I'm not gonna let my people go thirsty. And Sir Eustace is like, nah, that's not gonna happen. So Dunk, because he is this night person, is like, okay, let me try to figure the situation out because in Sir Eustace properties, there's like three little villages, and there's people living there, and they also are gonna, die from lack of water. So Dunk is like, okay, let me handle the situation. And also, when they go to the dam the first time, they realize that they have this problem. The other Hedge Knight is with Dunk, and he cuts the face of one of the workers in there, which causes a problem because now the lady from the other property is gonna, like, she's not gonna let that slide. So, like I said, Dunk take in their responsibility to try to go into this castle across the river and try to figure out the situation. So basically, this is the story. I think I talked too much about it. I mean, I didn't give any spoilers, but I think I talked too much about it. That's I don't know which one is my favorite story. I really like this one, and I really like the first one. It's hard to choose. And Egg is also in this story, and by the end, I guess I would say that this is one of the stories that to me shows more growth in both of characters of Dunk and Egg. This story, also the second story, The Sword and Sword, also is a story that opens up the world a little bit more. We get to know in what stage the realm is. The realm is recovering from a rebellion time where a lot of people died, where the realm was divided between like two factions. Also, between the first and the second story, there was a very great flu, basically like a great sickness where a lot of people died. So you kind of get to see a little bit like the people, the actual people talking about it and Dunk's insights and that. So it's a okay, that might be my favorite story. That's a very, very good one. And also the next season of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with that. So the last story is The Mystery Knight. I don't know what to think about this one because I started this story in a mourning process already because that was the last story. So I was like, I don't know, and I was okay. Let's tell the story. So this story is after the events of the Sword Sword, maybe 6 months, 6 months ish after it, a couple of months after it. It's not a very long time, but by the end of this the Sword Sword, that's not a spoiler. Dunk and Egg decided they're going to the wall to the north because they want to see the wall. The wall was like this big monument that they have at the north of the country that is literally a wall made of ice, but it's like super, super, super tall. I'm not even gonna try to get say how many meters it has because I don't remember now, but it's like super tall. Dunk and Egg decided they want to go there and check to see what's the deal and see it. And also, there's some stuff going on in the north that they might need some swords. So then it's like, yeah, why not? So in this, the third story, The Mystery Knight, starts with them going north. In the middle of the way in there, it's still summer, it's still very hot. They're walking the road and they see like a caravan of knights, like noble-ish knights, noble-ish men passing through. So they open space for them to pass. They try to hide, but then one of them sees them and they're like, you guys are hedge knights. So we're going to a feast, like a wedding feast. If you guys want to come, the next day there's going to have a joust. And Dunk is like, we could use the money because it's going to be kind of expensive to cross halfway the continent to go to the wall. So yeah, if I win a couple of jousts, I can have enough money for me and Egg to eat well. And go to the wall. Because that's the thing about the hedge knight life. It's not a very fancy life. They have to sleep out and about very often. They don't have like a lot of quality foods to eat all the time. He wants to go to this feast, and Egg is very firmly against it, but Dunk is like, no, we're going. So Dunk and Egg are on the way to this feast, and they meet a few other hedge knights. They get to know each other, and this is where the expansion of world building starts playing a part more than before. Like the previous story, that's also important, but in this story specifically, I mean, this is the whole central consequence, I would say. So I would say that this is the story where the current climate of the realm is very important, and the fact that we are seeing different opinions about what is going on is also very important. So going to this feast, Dunk is someone that doesn't really care about the previous rebellion. He's like, yeah, okay, whatever, because he was a child, so he only remembers the aftermath of it. He starts to realize that this rebellion was way more important than he would give credit, and people still divide themselves by those factions. And like, if you were with the crown or against the crown, so there's still a lot of resentment in the part that lost the rebellion. And this is a story where Dunk gets to see it, and it's very sad that this last story, because like, I mean, I just I want to see, But after 35 minutes of me just blabbing about it, here you have the summary of these three short stories. So I mean, I'm gonna try to be as quick as possible to finish this video. I think I talked a lot, and I feel like it's kind of obvious how I feel about this book. And I mean, you can get your idea of what I thought of the book. But let's go. So, what I thought about the writing, I really love the author, George R. Martin. That's very hard for me to say. I really love his writing, and I feel that this is a different style of writing in this universe. For me, I haven't read his other non Ice and Fire materials. It's like, after this one, I want to read anything that this man writes, because I mean, I would eat his grocery store list, like, for real. Now we have Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. That is through Dunk's perspective solely, but it's kind of like interesting, because now you're stuck into Dunk's perspective, and you don't have like this narrative. So to me, it was very nice just to see George writing like this. Um, the writing is phenomenal, like, for real. Some harder, like more hardcore fans would say that there's like lots of parallels with the main series. Like, I really like the story, but I'm not a hardcore fan. It's a very entertaining book. I would say that is lighter, a little bit lighter than the main series, the Ice and Fire series, but you still have the greedy part of Ice and Fire. I feel like there's more funny scenes, like with Egg. I don't know. I laugh a lot with Egg. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a comic relief or anything like it. So yeah, it was really nice. I definitely feel like it's a different thing, but also very true to the essence of the main series. About the characters, Dunk and Egg are our main characters, and they are going to be, like the focal point, like Dunk, more specifically, the focal point of the three stories, and they are the recurring characters in the three stories. Other than that, every story has a different set of characters, and they are set in different places too. And I think this is like awesome. Like, really, really awesome. The being in the perspective of a poor, uneducated guy, boy, because he's a boy, and seeing him grow and seeing him having to face his expectations of the world and seeing how the world actually is, and also seeing like how in a way his dreams were shattered in the end of the first story, and seeing how this affects him throughout the other two stories. Like the events of the first story are like so important for his character, and seeing him like navigating the hard feelings is very nice. Also, Egg, I mean, his character, I feel like grows into having more personality. Like I said, I guess like the first story, George didn't have much of a pretension with it, and the second and the third story, you can see his writing maturing, and also like him incorporating the world building in the story and vice versa. So it's interesting to see Egg also having to understand the harsh reality of the world, and also having to understand that you cannot change people's minds so easily, that you have a like understanding that you have a different perspective than other people. Like I don't know, I think it's a very nice story. Dunk, particularly, I think it's one of the characters that truly are like good people. It's just awesome. Just read it. And yeah, I guess that's everything that I have to say about this one. I mentioned a little bit of the themes. I think the most important theme for me, in my interpretation, is what it means to be a good knight, a good person, what it means to keep your word, to keep your promises to people, what it means to serve people also. And given the context of Ice and Fire, I feel like this book, they touch on a subject that is like, while in the main series people are like fighting for power and like fighting for the throne, and like trying to avenge each other, like the rival houses, things like that. I feel like Fire and Blood and A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, they bring a different perspective of like, you might be doing your own thing, but you're not necessarily going to be perceived in history or by the main people, the common folk, as a good person, or your intentions are not going to be perceived the way you think they would be perceived. So, like I said in the beginning, in the first story, there's something very important that happens by the end of the story. And we know firsthand what happened because we're there with Dunk. But in the last story, and even in the second story, but we see how this event was spread around the realm, and the perception that people have of it, and you're like, oh, that's not really what happened, but okay. And I guess like what I try to say, I guess that Fire and Blood also kind of does this. Stuff happens, but they are not necessarily going to be talked about truthfully. It's interesting to see Dunk having this. Yeah, I'm talking about like perspective a lot, but knowing this, and also for Egg, I feel like this is more important for Egg. Things will happen, the story will spread, and you're not going to have control over it. So yeah, I'm just trying to wrap up about the themes and characters, and that's it. I'm not going to keep talking. I could be talking here for. Yeah, this book is amazing. Just to wrap up, I gave 5 stars on Goodreads, and I'm a very critical person, so I don't hand off 5 stars that easily. And in the beginning of the video, I said I read the book to watch the TV show. So there's a parenthesis in there. I read the first story before watching the TV show, before the TV show was aired. After that, I was supposed to keep going to the second and the third story, but I was like, nah, this story is really good. I really like the novella. I love the TV show. I have to read it again. So I basically read the first story twice, back to back, kind of back to back, and then I finally finished the second and the third story. And yeah, if I can say anything in the end of this video, I would please invite you, beg you to read this awesome story of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Like, it's so awesome. Like, I cannot stop talking about it, and I'm just trying not to think that there's only three stories and that we probably are not going to see any more stories of Dunk and Egg, because then I want to cry, like for real cry. I'm so freaking sad that I finish these stories. Like, I'm so sad. God. Oh, there's just one more note that I forgot. I mean, that's kind of a fun fact, I guess. Um, I found this at the mall recently, and I'm really really happy because they're kind of hard to find here. But the stories have comic books, graphic novels. I don't know. I don't really know the difference between them in English, but I think this is a graphic novel, and comic books is the finer ones that release every week. But anyway, and they are awesome. I have to read. I have to read the comic book version because I haven't yet. So yeah, there's a way the story can still be alive in my mind. I am very this. Oh, sorry. This is the Hedge Knight, and this is the Sworn Sword, and there's no words to describe how sad I am that this is it's over. So please read it, and if you have read it or if you reread it, please come back and write something in the comments so I can talk about it with someone, because life is sad and life is lonely because none of my friends have read it. Like, they weren't blessed by Dunk and Egg, and I need people to I need to spread the gospel. That's it. Bye. The viewing stand had already begun to fill, the lords and ladies clutching their cloaks tied about them against the morning chill. Small folks were drifting toward the field as well, and hundreds of them already stood along the fence. So many come to see me die, thought Dunk bitterly, but he wronged them. A few steps farther on, a woman called out, "Good fortune to you." An old man stepped up to take his hand and said, "May the gods give you strength, sir." Then a begging brother in a tattered brown robe said a blessing on his sword, and a maid kissed his cheek. "They are for me." "Why?" he asked Bate. "What am I to them?" "A knight who remembered his vows," the smith said.